I mean, I think probably for the next one we should like have some music or something, like a theme song to class it up. Make
Should
it,
we? Well,
yeah.
we've started, so maybe not.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about games.
Hope you're doing well in
Oh,
quarantine.
right, the quarantine. I forgot all about that.
I'm Nancy.
Oh, yeah, and I'm Matt, and we're going to talk about games. We've already done 3 videos. Is this our third?
Fourth?
Fourth? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're expecting a Netflix deal any minute now.
We got the Shaggy Quarantine Do going on.
Yep.
We got the quarantine hoodies.
Sucks to be me. So, let's talk about games. We've already talked about your intro games, your family games, and then something else. It doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
Yeah, we're losing our minds. But tonight we're going to talk about the games when you want to take it to the next level, when you've played the family fun stuff and you want a little bit more meat. These are the games.
These are the games you want your snacks for.
Mm-hmm.
You want your beverages for.
Indeed.
Because you're going to be here for a while.
You are going to be here for a while. Not all of them are that long, but let's dive right into it. I'm going to start off with one of our favorites. It is called... Not you, Alexa. This is called Dominion. And this is a deck building game. There are a lot of deck building games. And I think Legendary Marvel is one of them. I think there's a DC deck building game. But all of these games have this giant number of cards. And the premise is each of you is going to have a deck of these cards, and you'll play. And I'm sure you've seen people play Magic the Gathering, things like that. This is much more simple than that, but it can get much more complicated. So each time you play it, you're going to pick 10 different kinds of cards. And there's all kinds. There's a village, a witch, seller, thief, spy, smithy, all kinds of different cards. And you are going to purchase those cards to add them to your deck and make your deck stronger and stronger. And at the end of the game, whoever owns the most of these green cards with points on them wins. The problem is the green cards, although they give you points, they don't do much good to let you play complicated hands. So
they clutter up your deck.
Yeah, this is a deck builder and an engine builder, really, which means you're sort of putting pieces into play to try and generate sort of a windfall series of events. But one of the coolest things about Dominion is it is super expandable. There are lots and lots of expansions. This is Intrigue. This is the only one we have, but there are lots of others that add all kinds of new cards. No 2 games are the same. You can get apps that let you randomly pick, that'll help you randomly pick, or if there are some cards that, like, let's say the person that you play this with really hates certain cards, like, say, the Torturer, you can put it on the list and it will not ever pick the... Oh, is it Saboteur? Saboteur.
No, I wouldn't. No. I don't think that's ever happened.
So that's our first game. It is Dominion. You can find this at your friendly local game store. And there we go. Over to you.
So we actually probably really should have started with this one, because this is the one that a lot of people are probably very familiar with. We call it the gateway game. It's the one we started with. It's the one a lot of people are familiar with. And a lot of the games in this video, they're not that complicated once you understand the mechanics and you understand how they're played. But they have a lot of rules that you have to kind of get through. And like we said, they do tend to go on, or some of these take up a lot of space. But so Catan is one that we've played for years, and it does have some issues. First of all, it has to have at least 3 players.
Not true.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay, all
right. This version, you need at least 3 players. So this is the one that we tend to have to bribe our son, especially during quarantine, so that we can play it. There are a lot of expansions to it, though, and so they really switch up the game. So and we only have a couple. We have Seafarers, and then the one that we really love, that really kind of changed the game and just kind of made it kind of new for us, is Cities and Knights. So these are all this is a trading game. It's worker placement. It does kind of
It's not work replacement.
No, I guess it's not.
No, it's equal parts social, strategy,
But
and
then also look at the dice.
Yeah.
Because you're rolling dice, and depending on what you get, it is one that can get frustrating, especially if you're a new player to it, because if you're not getting good dice rolls, then you're not getting what you need to move forward in the game. The one good thing about Catan is there are so many different versions. So if it's only two of you, there is the 2-player card game version. That is much simpler. It's not necessarily reliant on the dice rolls, but it kind of gives you the same mechanics and kind of the same satisfaction of being able to expand your villages and get the resources. Then there is also the multiplayer card game. So you can play this with 2 players or multiple players. So it's a game unto itself called The Struggle for Catan. And then if you really want to go out for something different, this is the Roll and Play Settlers for Catan. Again, you're rolling dice, but then you have a little
island,
and I'm not gonna be able to get this open.
That's all right.
Am I?
All of these,
Yeah, you're drawing in your villages and your roads.
All of these also a good thing. There's sort of a common theme through all of these. That you're going to have wood, brick, rock, gold, and once you kind of know what you need for one game, it translates to each of them. Especially if you like puns about having wood per sheet.
So this is could fit into intro games, but like I said, it does need 3 players if you're starting with this version. It can go on for a long time, so if you're playing with kids who maybe don't have the attention span, you do need to be able to kind of settle in for a little while. It can be an uneven play, but it is one that I do like. I just still really like it, and I do like to go back to it fairly often when we can.
All right.
Now I figure out where to put all this.
So my next game that I would like to introduce you to is called Dice Forge. Now, I know a lot of people don't like dice. I generally don't like dice in games because I like a little bit more strategy and Risk. When we played Risk, it drove me nuts because I'd have this great strategy and then you just get crappy dice rolls. This is a little bit different. In this game, you are one of 4 heroes, and everybody starts with the same dice. Now you're like, those dice look weird. They are. Each of them has this Lego face. And as you roll them, you'll collect gold or red or blue stones or green victory points. And you can spend the gold to buy new faces for your dice. And
so it's a dice building game.
It's a dice building
instead of a deck building game.
And these pop off, and it's very satisfying. The first time you do it, they fly around the room.
Because you're not going to know how to do it.
Yeah. But
There's a trick.
But then you add to the dice, and your dice get more powerful, and you can add little tricks like, I can re-roll this dice. So do you make one of the dice super strong and the other one weak? It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of neat stuff going on. Really cool, fun art. A surprising amount of different things you can do with these dice. And, all of the cards have different powers. There's like pig guy, and it's a lot of fun. Surprisingly easy, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed this game. We play it fairly regularly, and that is my second choice.
Okay, so my next one is one that has been referred to as more of an activity than a game, but it is one of my favorites. It is 7 Wonders. And 7 Wonders, how would you describe it? Not really
drafting.
Engine building.
Yeah, you're drafting. It's kind of like if you remember Sushi Go, where you have a hand of cards, you draw one, you pass the cards to the next person, then you decide what you're going to do with that card. Are you going to add it to your tableau? Are you going to use it to build your wonder?
So the theme is you're building one of the 7 wonders of the world. 7 wonders. And you can play with, there is a 2-player way you can make this a 2-player game. Typically it's 3 to 7 players though. And so you're drafting cards, and you have to kind of decide if you want to maybe have a strong science tableau or a strong military tableau. And there are different you can have different leaders from ancient history to give you different powers. You can add in expansions like the Tower of Babel, which gives you some different wonders and some different projects that you can build.
All right, a cool thing about Babel, there's two real expansions to Babel. One of them has the Tower of Babel, and each turn somebody can add a new rule to the tower, and so what's required is constantly changing depending on what pieces you play, which makes it a really cool dynamic because you may want to build when things are cheaper. The other one is kind of corporate projects where at the end of each round, everybody has to have provided some kind of help to this corporate project.
Where you lose stuff.
If it fails, we lose stuff. If it passes, then everybody who contributed gets a nice little bonus.
This is one that usually first time playing, the basic 7 wonders is enough because there's so much going on. There's so many different ways you can score points. There's so many different ways that you can ultimately get what you need to win, that this is usually enough. We don't usually add these in until people have, we've played it with them a couple times. But like I said, there is a 2-player version of this. There's a way you can adapt it, but it's a little clunky. So what we really like is the 2-player version of 7 Wonders called Duel. And this is really a really awesome game. It has the same mechanics. You're still building the wonders. You're trying to figure out whether you want to go with science or military or the different other ways you can score points. There is a really good expansion to this one called Pantheon, which brings in gods and goddesses from different mythologies. So it's really, I like that aspect of it. The mythology aspect really appeals to me. So this is one that when it's just the 2 of us, we play a lot. And it's a very satisfying version of one of my favorite games.
All right. So our next game, I never played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. I never got into it. And I know a lot of people do as adults. I'm not really kind of a storyteller in that fashion. So I was a little hesitant to try this one. But when we were first getting into games, a guy at the game store, The Labyrinth in DC, he recommended this. And when I first saw it, I thought, there's no way we can play that. That's way too hard. But we've since got a copy of it. And it is The Lords of Waterdeep.
Love this game.
This is a worker placement game. It is set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's not really like what Dungeons and Dragons is all about. Instead, we are playing in the town of Waterdeep.
Board's not intimidating at all.
No, not at all. But there are different. Oh, it's also upside down, which I'm sure you can even tell. But there are different spaces, and you have a certain amount of adventurers, and you'll play them, and you have cards, which you might need to finish this mission. You might need a cleric and a thief and 2 adventurers, and so you can pick them up at different places around town. But what makes this game really cool is all of these empty spaces. You can buy stores. You can buy new spaces that if people come to your store, then you get kind of a bonus as well. So that's the base game, which is plenty fun. But now there's also the
Scoundrels of Skullport.
Scoundrels of Skullport, which adds new spaces, adds some new missions, adds some
expands the board because it gives different places where you can. This is true worker placement. You place your worker somewhere to be able to do an action.
And what fun art's there! You get all of the monsters, but it's the theming. But it's not really like the storytelling, and that's fine with me. This is more kind of our jam here. So that was Lords of Waterdeep. Big thumbs up.
Okay, so this one is actually one that could be kind of an intro game. We have added to, you can tell we've added to it so much that the box doesn't even close anymore, which I'm not really sure why. This is called Kingdom Builder. And this is, you put 4 different boards that kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. They have different landscapes on them, like mountains and, well, that's why, because it's all gotten so messed up.
Who did that?
But flowers and water and desert and forest. And you have different goals that you're trying to accomplish, or different things that you're trying to build. You have your little houses, and I will say,
these are mine. These are mine.
So it's a house rule that if the game has orange player pieces, only one person is allowed to play with those orange player pieces in our house. But this is one, it has an app, and so this is one that I have played on the app many, many times. But the really nice thing about this game is because the boards, every time you bring a board out, you're never going to play the same game twice, because the boards are going to be put together differently. You're going to have different goals, and every game is going to be a different game, especially when you add in all the expansions. You have the parts of different games being played. You have different cards that get added in. So one thing we talk about when we talk about games is the replayability factor. This one has a lot of replayability because every game is going to be a little bit different. It doesn't take a long time. For someone who's new, it can, trying to remember everything you can do, because there are your base plays that you place 3 little houses on each turn, depending on what card you draw for your landscape. But then you get other pieces that let you place more or move things. So it can get to be a lot for someone who is playing for the first time, remembering everything that you can do and what all the different goals are.
I think the app really helps with that. If you download the Kingdom Builder app, and it is a good app, so it might cost like $6, but you will learn the game and you will really get a feeling for, oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So this is one of we actually, Parrish, I think, brought this to our house the first time we played it with. So, but this is one that we have bought, and like I said, we have added to it. Actually, my mother has given us the expansions for Christmas a couple years in a row. So this is one that we have really enjoyed, and one that I'm going to have to repack the box because that's annoying.
Oh my. Speaking of Christmas and mother-in-law and worker placement, last Christmas, our Nancy's mom bought us this game, which we just went on the recommendation of our friend Rob. Rob had brought most of the game, but not enough to actually play it. So you're going to see the same name twice here. Uwe Rosenberg. He's the guy who designed Agricola, if you've ever played that, and Patchwork. Yeah.
Some of the other games that we've talked about.
He's a rock star in the board game community. That's the saddest thing I've ever said, I think. But Rosenberg's games are really, really cool, and this is one of the coolest. It is called Caverna.
Now, this is one you need. It takes up this entire table. This table that we're sitting at seats 8 players, and we use every inch of space to play this game.
I mean, there is literally hundreds and hundreds of pieces here. You have caves, you have bedrooms, you have different kinds of farms, you have little wooden dogs, donkeys. There's all kinds of cool stuff. And the premise of the game is we are all dwarves. We are working and we are building tunnels and clearing forests to build farms and digging these tunnels. And there's only a certain number of moves that you can take. And so you have to choose carefully. And do you want to build mines? And do you want to go on adventures? Do you want to try and breed donkeys? Everything's going to give you different points. And there's no one way to win the game. There are lots of different ways. And
so one thing, the game that a lot of people talk about, worker placement, and Uwe Rosenberg's game is Agricola. Agricola for me is very, very stressful because in Agricola, you have to be able to feed your growing family or you go into debt. And it's hard to do that. And literally, I have gotten anxiety attacks playing Agricola.
That's not the sort of thing we need right now, no.
So Caverna, it's very much a similar game, but the feeding is a much easier. And now I will say I did give Rob a hard time because he's like, oh, you don't have the feeding issues in this game that you have in Agricola. And this sounds so nerdy. I will take issue with him on that because there is feeding in this one, but the way that you do it, the way you can convert the food that you have into feeding your family is a little bit easier. So it kind of takes a little bit of that stress away.
So yeah.
Wow, that was nerdy.
Yeah. The other thing which this adds is kind of combat. You can go on adventures and you have different levels of weapons, and with those weapons you get rewards like carrots and donkeys and still it's just a neat game and a lot of fun and a lot of great pieces.
You just need a whole lot of space.
You need a lot of space.
And a long time.
And you will see Rosenberg again here in just a second. But Nancy, what is your next?
Well, and also with cover, so a lot of these great games, especially worker placement games, when they give you like an estimated time frame, a lot of them, it's time per player.
Yeah.
So if it says 30 minutes, a lot of them it's like 30 minutes per player. So you figure if you're playing 5 people, so it's 5 people times 30 minutes. So again,
this can play up to 7, and it's 30 minutes per player. Yeah. So imagine 7 times 30. That's
so this is why you big bowl of popcorn, couple drinks, because you're here for an evening. Okay, so Rob, our friend Rob, is getting a lot of shout outs tonight because some of my favorite games are games that he has introduced us to. This was one that he taught us years ago. We get together with him in the summers. Usually either he comes up here or we go to Florida and we play games, and Castles of Burgundy has been one of my favorites for years. This is one, there are expansions for it. We don't have any. Our friends Lisa and Kevin have got the expansion. And so when we can, I hope to play it sometime soon. But this is also a game that, again, it's different enough each time that I haven't gotten sick of playing it, the base version. So I haven't needed an expansion to make it new. Like Catan has gotten better with the expansions. This one is just really still a satisfying gameplay.
I think the key to that is you have your basic rules, but then one specific kind of piece lets you break rules, just you. And if you buy that piece, all of a sudden you don't have the same constraints as everybody else at the table. And you're not going to get those same pieces every game. So it does make it very different.
And it's not even one of the prettiest games. But there's just the way it plays, and there are the boards. There are a couple different board variations, so you're not necessarily playing the same board as your opponent. But you're trying to kind of build your castles, build your kingdom, and as you do that, you are achieving goals, which are getting you victory points. Most of these games, you win with victory points. So, but this is just one that I've liked for a really long time, and I appreciate Rob for introducing us to it.
All right, talking about fun, sexy theming and games. This one, Rob also taught us, and we were at a game store and we were trying to decide what to buy. And I was like, we have to buy this one because it is called Nosfjord. I know, pretty exciting, right? And the theme of Nosfjord is you're in a Norwegian fishing village. And in this Norwegian fishing village, you have to try and feed the elders in the village. You have to go and catch fish to feed them. And with those elders, there's each of them has a different, they're old Norwegian folks. Each of them gives you different abilities. And with those abilities, you can cut down forests in your village. You can build new ships. You can build new buildings. You can sell shares in your company, and other people can buy them, and which means you have to pay them in subsequent turns. It's just a lot going on here. It's still not as complicated as Caverna or Agricola, but still a lot of fun. And one of the great things about this game is there are 3 unique decks, different kinds of fish, and each one has completely different cards for each game. You have these.
Apparently, it's specific kinds of fish. We couldn't tell you what kind. We just know they have letters A, B, and C. We don't know if they're herring or mackerel or what. I don't know. You
have wood, you have fish, you have coins, and it's so absurdly nerdy that it amuses you until you go, oh, this is a kind of a cool game. I like what they're doing here, especially with the elders, where you're feeding them fish and they'll do favors for you. So. Find an old person, give them a fish, and maybe they'll help you build a sawmill.
And our last one is, again, a Rob Rob game. And it is probably, if not my all-time favorite, up there. This is Terraforming Mars. And just like what it says, you are working on terraforming Mars because we have ruined our planet and we need to go live someplace else.
Fun.
And so you get points for raising the oxygen level so that different things can grow. You get points for raising the temperature. You get points for
Oceans.
Oh yeah, oceans. You need water. So you're playing cards that are letting you do these things. There are projects that you can do. There are expansions that you also can.
Oh shit, we haven't even played. I don't even know if we've played Prelude yet, have we?
I didn't even know we had Prelude.
Yeah, we had Prelude.
Oh, so this is one that we have played a lot, and I think, is this one of the first games we got Lisa to play, or Kevin got Lisa to play?
I think so.
And there are different boards. So when you get the expansions, there are different boards. So you play different sides of Mars. So it changes the terrain. It's just a really good game. I don't know what else to say about it. Worker placement?
No, you're building tableaus.
Drafting?
There's drafting. You're playing all of these science projects, but you can only play them under certain conditions. Like you can't introduce mammals until the temperature and the oxygen are high enough, but you can introduce tardigrades.
So it's sciencey.
It is sciencey.
If you like science, this is a good game. You actually kind of learn something about what could actually live on Mars under what conditions.
Well, and we had to, when you start, you actually start as one of like several dozen different companies. And so whether or not you're taking like a global banking, you represent global banking or mining industries or bioengineering, it all kind of alters how you play the game.
So again, a lot of replayability because no game is going to be the same because the way you pull the cards are going to be different, the way you play the cards, the strategy you're playing, depending on the cards you have or the corporation you have. All of these games have a lot of replayability because every time you play it, it's going to be a little bit different. And that's it. Those are our 10. So these are like the deep dive, complicated, not even really complicated.
Yeah.
A lot of rules.
To the next step.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules to them. They take a while, but once you understand the mechanics of it, it's easy to catch on.
Oh, wait.
And I don't know where he's going now. And I guess I'm just going to talk and he's pulling something. He's pulling a game that we've played. I think we've played this game all the way through one time.
One time. This is arguably on Board Game Geek. It is one of the highest rated games. I'm just going to mention it as an honorable mention. This is Twilight Struggle. And on the back, two players. It's mostly a card game. And I'm looking for the time if it says...
Oh, this one took us like 5 hours. The two of us.
Yeah.
It took us... We had to like stop and go to bed and finish it the next morning.
The premise is you are playing out the whole Cold War.
Yes. Not stressful at all.
Not stressful at all. You're trying to have relations with China. One of you plays as Russia. One plays as United States. You're trying, if the DEFCON goes too high, you lose. Incredibly stressful, very deep.
Really cool history. You learn, if you don't know Cold War history, you learn a lot about what happens throughout, the span of time. I think we've only gotten through this game one time.
Yeah.
Because it takes forever.
I'm just laughing at how ridiculous this game is. I know I'm sure you all have better things to do than watch this.
Than have us talk about a game that we've only played one time.
But here's the instruction manual. All right, I think I'm done. Let's play this. Let's play it now.
Yeah, I do have to work tomorrow.
All right. So
those are our kind of next level complicated games that maybe we can play sometime when we see each other again.
All right, hit the button, Frank.